Hello and welcome to Module 5. Module 5 is mostly a review for the midterm exam. You will be taking the midterm exam. You'll also be taking a quiz over the study guide, which will be termed quiz number 5. You will be taking a current events quiz. Lots of current events, lots of news. But the main thing that I want to talk about in this module and in this video is to talk about the study guide for the midterm exam. Now understand that when I make the when I make up the exam, I make the study guide first, and I look to the study guide and I make sure that there's nothing on the on the midterm that's not on the study guide. There will be things are referenced on the study guide that will not be on the midterm, but it doesn't work the other way. Now, I also have a perspective on study guides in that they are suggestions on what to study and how to study for the midterm. It's not a list of questions. It's not a list of words that you should know the meaning to. We have a list of words that you should know the meaning to, and those are the key terms that are at the end of each chapter. Remember that key terms in this book appear both in boldface in the text at the end of each chapter in terms of a little section where they're alphabetized and called key terms, and again in the glossary where all of the key terms are given definitions. So you can pick up the meaning of key terms by how they're used in sentences in the book, or you can look them up in the glossary, and you also have a list of them at the end of each chapter. And you would be well served if you look at those key terms as you're doing your studying. I would strongly recommend. I think that one of the places where the most points are lost each semester is in the midterm exam. It might be that students are thinking that just because they were able to answer 6 questions correctly at the end of the chapter when it first came up, that all of the questions are going to be coming from that list of questions, and that's not true. Maybe it's that you had time to look up all of the answers when you were taking the quizzes, and so you assume that you'll have time to look up all the questions when you're taking the midterm, and then you run out of time and it hurts you. But I would say that the midterm exam definitely surprises some students who had otherwise been doing well. So make sure you take some time to study for the midterm. I would say that 10 or 15 minutes is not enough. I would say that however long you would typically study for an exam that was going to count for 15% or so of your grade, that's how long you should be studying. It's going to cover chapters 1 through 6 and chapter 9. Remember, not chapter 7 and 8, because they're going to be on the final exam. We're waiting till the final exam to treat them, because that's the presidency and the bureaucracy, and since they're both in the executive branch, we wanted to deal with them together. And the questions will be staggered, so you shouldn't expect to have multiple questions from the same chapter in a row. Now, if you're doing the exam, remember it's open book and it's open note, and so the more preparation you do in terms of looking up the key terms, knowing where to find things, maybe you bookmark or however the different parts of the different questions so that you know how to find them. Preparation will definitely help you on the exam. If you look up each question, you better be able to find each question's answer in less than a minute, right? Then it takes you another 20 seconds or so to answer the question, save it, and move on to the next question. Every semester, a few people run out of time. You see somebody gets the first 20 questions right, and then they wildly guess at the last 10 and get half of them wrong. and then they're like, oh, I'm so frustrated with myself. I do have several methods for catching cheating. So whereas it is open book and it's open note, it's not, phone a friend. And I think that, people who get caught cheating will definitely regret that. It's, you know, the worst grade in the class is likely to be a 20. Why are you risking those other 20 points that you get, to say nothing of your entire grade for the course? So you should begin with reviewing the key terms. These key terms or their definitions will be well represented amongst the answers. Philosophically, I try to have a course set up so that if you just read the slides, you should be able to get about 80% if you know all the answers. And if you just read the book, you should be able to get 80% if you just know the answer, if you know all the answers. But in order to get a 100%, you really need to be familiar with both the slides and the book. I would say that the lecture, but the way we have lectures this semester is that they're voiceover PowerPoints. So what are some of the things that you should make sure that you know? You should be familiar with the list of civil liberties in the Constitution. So that's in the list of, so we have slides for chapters 4 and 5. In that same section, you have civil liberties that are in the U.S. Constitution. From chapter 1, you should be able to discuss the prisoner's dilemma, different government types, the chicken game, the tragedy of the commons, agency loss, free riders. In chapter 2, you should be familiar with the content of each article in the original Constitution, which article of the Constitution set up each of the different branches of government, how do we amend the Constitution, things like that. I was just watching a Netflix documentary where they were talking about amending the Constitution, and the documentary gets it wrong. It says that you need a 2/3 majority in order to amend the Constitution, and you actually need a 3/4 majority of the states to ratify constitutional amendments. It was really funny. They said that an amendment to the Constitution had been approved by 35 states, which was just 3 states short of the 2/3 majority they'd need. And I turned to my wife and I said, somebody thinks there's 57 states. Maybe it's 3/4. And it is 3/4 of the states it takes to ratify the Constitution. Chapter 3, you should be able to talk about the nationalization of government power, the parts of the Constitution that led to the nationalization, events in American history that have led to nationalization, the difference between cooperative and dual federalism. In Chapter 4, you should be aware of the history of civil rights in the United States before the Civil War, in the aftermath of the Civil War, ways that people were kept from voting after the Civil War, and the 15th Amendment. You should be familiar with Dred Scott, Brown versus Board of Education, and Plessy versus Ferguson, 3 important Supreme Court cases, 2, I guess, that were decided badly and 1 that was decided well. You can figure out which. Chapter 5, you should have a working knowledge of the list of civil liberties in the Constitution. You should know the term incorporation. You should pay particular attention to the First Amendment. The First Amendment's my favorite amendment, and so I have a bias toward asking questions about the First Amendment. What if I said, which of the following are civil liberties that are in the First Amendment? Now, a wrong answer could be 1, because it is a civil liberty, but it's not in the First Amendment. It could be a wrong answer because it's not a civil liberty. You should think about that. Chapter 6 deals with Congress, its leadership structure, and the members of the leadership. Remember, I told you you're supposed to look that up. how a bill becomes a law, election rules, what districts are, what gerrymandering is, what's the difference between the Senate and the House. We have a bicameral legislature, which means we have two houses within our legislative branch. Chapter 9 deals with the U.S. court system, especially the Supreme Court, but also includes the structure of the judiciary. So you should also know the district and circuit where KSU is located. If you're not if you're not from Kennesaw and you're not taking the course in Kennesaw, look up Kennesaw, but also look up your own. If you get the answer wrong, but you send me an email immediately after the exam that says, but I live in the, Southern District of New York, maybe you should also tell me what city you live in, and then I will be able to evaluate it. I might know. So there'll be no substitute for studying, but I think that, and I should point out that the quiz, the quiz for this module is not a quiz on the material exactly. It's a quiz on material that you're referred to by the study guide and the study guide. So it's really a quiz on the reading material of the course for this week, which is what is on the study guide. So I strongly encourage you to look at this. But remember, you have 13 other points in this module between the two quizzes. So make sure that you work through all of these, work diligently, and I think that things should go pretty well for you. Obviously, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. All right, have a good week and good luck.